Let's go. Named Aaron Donald. I know you guys are pretty familiar with Aaron Donald. I know the NFL community is pretty familiar with Aaron Donald, but a long 10 years has now come to the end. This guy is getting out in his prime, and he's retiring at absolutely a perfect time in my mind, because I would say he's already considered as one of the top DTs to ever play the position, and he has a whole life ahead of him. You know what I'm saying? So why stay and get hurt over and over again and put your body through this painful grit that these football players go through every season, you know, when you can retire on top? You see time after time again, people stay too long in the sport. So that being said, I just want to open up the mic. Let's start with Adam. Adam, what's your thoughts on Aaron Donald retiring? And thank you guys so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for hosting the show. Aaron Donald is an awesome player. He is the modern day, for me, he's the modern day John Randall. He's the guy I always compare him to. He's the guy that I grew up seeing. It's not that I wasn't impressed with Aaron Donald. I loved it. But when you go back and you look at John Randall and his kind of measurables and what they did as undersized D tackles, they changed the game inside. You know, this guy changed the game inside. There is, you know, he revolutionized the D tackle position. No one was getting D tackle money like he was until he came along, right? It was always going to the edge. Well, guess what? He showed in this era of football, you can actually have a small, undersized defensive tackle be a dominant player. And he was an absolute dominant player. And, you know, he's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's got his ring. So to me, I enjoyed watching him play. I'm actually glad I got to see him play, because it's not every day you get to see Hall of Fame players, right? And watch their careers. Like for me, I saw the tail end of, you know, the Elways and the Montanas. Of course, I watched Peyton Manning's and Drew Brees, but not everybody comes along where you really changed the game. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, this guy did everything. Absolutely an absolute terror in the middle. I can't think of a better. I mean, there's D tackles that have come before him, and there's an argument about him being the best defensive player of all time. That I will debate with you all day. I don't think he's the greatest.
That still belongs to a certain giant, but continue.
But I do believe for a D tackle, he's up there, and he's one of my favorites. When I start my team, I know we're going to do those all-star teams again down the road, I guess, when the Hall of Fame comes in. He might be one of my D tackles that I put next to each other, and right to John Randall. So, you know, again, he was a different animal. The only other guy that can kind of compare to him was J.J. Watt, because that's how dominant J.J. Watt was. I mean, not J.J. Watt. Yeah, J.J. Watt. People don't realize how dominant he was.
Absolutely.
J.J. Watt was absolute stud. Like, people forget how good he was. And he came a little before Aaron Donald. Like, he came in 2010, and that guy was beast in the league, and people don't realize, like, he was an absolute terror. So before Aaron Donald, there was J.J. Watt. So, but it was great to see another guy come in. And, you know, when you look at J.J. Watt, you think, oh, my God, that guy's going to dominate. 6'5", 290 pounds, could do everything, right? Was like
not to cut you off, Adam, but I believe J.J. Watt was another person that transferred teams that retired on top. You got to, if I remember, when he retired a bit 2 years ago, he had 12 sacks the previous season, you know?
Right, he was a great player. Oh, J.J. Watt's a great player.
Absolutely. And look at the Watt family in general, though, but continue, sorry.
Right, so what I'm saying is, like, if you're going to put J.J. Watt as a defensive tackle, which I think he could be, you could put him as edge, but if you were putting him as D tackle, he's the guy that came before Donald. And then Donald kind of just took it in a different way, because he made a guy who's not as tall or as lanky as J.J. Watt. And he made him like, oh, shoot, I can be this little bowling ball and crush and collapse your pocket. I mean, the guy's getting triple teams and still getting sacked. Yeah. It's insane. So, like I said, him and J.J. Watt are two of the best I've seen this last 10 years. And there's another one coming up there too. Chris Jones is pretty good as well. So hats off to Aaron Donald. Sorry, went a little long-winded. Mac, take over.
Well, look, first off, Adam, I love the comparison. John Randall was a player that was definitely ahead of his time. Long ahead of his time. Back in the day when he was playing the defensive tackle position, he was kind of an undersized guy too to be playing that position. But he was just an absolute dog, and that was a great comparison when you comparing Aaron Donald to John Randall, man. And but like you were just saying, man, piggyback off of what you were saying, like we got to, it's been a long lineage of great defensive tackles in this league, to be honest, man. I mean, the list can go on and on and on with great defensive tackles, and guys just keep raising that bar to another level, man. Just seem to keep raising. Like you said, we had a few years of J.J. Watt, who just took it to new heights in the position, and then here comes this guy named Aaron Donald, man, who just absolutely raised the bar, man, set a new standard for the defensive tackle position, man. I mean, he set an absolute new standard. The position is played differently because of a guy like Aaron Donald, man. I mean, this guy, he can play the run, fierce, stout, can rush the passer with the best of them. I mean, he can just do everything, man. He was just an absolute dominant force. He was pretty much the best player at his position his entire career. His entire career, he's been pretty much the best player at his position. I mean, it just...
That Super Bowl run was pretty epic.
I can't say more great things about Aaron Donald.
I mean, didn't he get the game-winning sack or something?
Things about Aaron Donald, man.
In that Super Bowl,
definitely was a force.
He had a big sack, didn't he? Didn't he have a big sack in the Super Bowl? And then isn't that the sack where he's running down, say, "Give me my ring" or something like that? Like, isn't that a walk-off sack? I thought that's what he had. Anyways, it's irrelevant. The point is, the guy's going to Canton, Ohio. I'm glad he's got a championship because I want to say something real quick.
He's going to 2029, people.
Yeah, first ballot, no question. You might as well just make the bust right now. I mean, that's how surefire. Him and TJ Watt, just don't even worry about it. They're in there. But I want to say something real quick. People are taking away greatness because guys don't win championships. And I need to stand up right now and say, stop taking away a player's greatness just because their team was either dog shit or they met like Michael Jordan in the finals. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't take away. People are saying about the quarterbacks and all these teams, great players aren't great. And I'm saying, these great players are great. I'm not going to take away that they haven't won a championship to say that they're not great. Dan Marino is a Hall of Famer. Is he not? Is he not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? Does he define by a championship? No. But my point is, I'm glad that Aaron Donald got a championship because now there's going to be no but he didn't win the championship discussion thing, because you know how the Hall of Fame works sometimes. So I'm glad he got that. I know that was long-winded, but I just wanted to kind of point out, people, just because you don't win a championship doesn't mean you're not great. But I'm just saying, because he won a championship, it all but puts him in with no doubts, no hesitation. So that's all I want to say.
Yeah, and I want to say this too. The NFL is such a recency bias league. What have you done for me lately? But there's come a time where you run into players like this, and you brought it up earlier, Adam, and I want to highlight that. It's this guy is generational. I like Adam said, and I'm gonna repeat it. I'm so happy to have watched him play throughout my lifetime, to seeing him, just actually looking at him running his 40 at the combine, and then seeing him get drafted, and then seeing what kind of career he had. You know what I'm saying? And it's just absolutely. I know people's gonna automatically and rightfully so,
picked right before right after Odell.
Right after Odell, I believe it's something like that. I know it was that draft, right?
Yeah, it was that draft. I know that Aaron Donald. I think Aaron Donald was on the board, and Odell was on the board. We took Odell, and at the time it was all right,
At the time, I love that pick though.
You can't lie about that. It was flashy.
Yeah, it was. You had to go get that Corvette.
That was great for us. He was great for the Giants. Yeah. It just hasn't been so great since.
Hey, you know what?
And I will say this real fast, Adam. And to I'm gonna use you're saying to land this plane I'm on. When Gronk retired, like everybody was so fast. Well, I want to say so fast, but everyone's like Kelsey. I hope that people respect him, and I get it. Chris Jones is amazing. Chris Jones is on that type of career. We have one in Dexter Lawrence that's right behind Chris Jones in my mind. But at the end of the day, there's only one Aaron Donald, and hopefully his legacy will live on. And I believe true NFL fans his name is gonna be brought up. You know what I'm saying? And at Rams games, he's gonna come out just how Luke Kuechly comes out at Panthers games.
And I want to say this one last thing.
Absolutely.
He played with his one team, and you don't always get to say that about a player these days. So it was good to see another player leaving that team on his own accord, not being traded. Like Bobby Wagner's back on Seattle right now. He's jumped over to Washington, right? But you remember him more as a Seattle Seahawk more than you remember him as any other player, right? You're not going to have that with Aaron Donald. He's a Ram all the way through and through. There's no doubt about it. So I just think that's awesome in this modern day of free agency and guys leaving and going to greener pastures. The fact that he dominated, they accommodated him and understood that how good he was, and they did what they needed to do. Hey, man, I would retire if I was him too. You accomplished everything.
Yeah.
Everything. You're a Hall of Fame player. You're a champion. You're going to go down as one of the top 5 probably D tackles of all time, and definitely in top 2 or 3 in certain conversations. So I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that we get to see a guy, how old vets hang on, like, oh, let me hang on here.
Yeah.
Good to see him.
It goes to show you, like you said, retire on top, right? Retire on top. He went through a lot of regime changes through his time at the Rams, right? He knows that Matthew Stafford's coming to the end. There's going to be another one. It's like, dude, I went through about 3 or 4. I have a ring. I gave my love to this city and to St. Louis. At the end of the day, retire on top.